Hi, this is Donna with Sparrowstudios7 bringing to you the second part of Genesis 16. I read and I learn and the commentary on it. I stopped reading about Hagar after I read that Abram was 86 years old. So I'm going to keep reading what my Bible said, the notes on Hagar from my Bible. I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on the chapter as I continue to play with reading. Alright, so like I said before, Hagar bore a son Ishmael in chapter 16 verses 1 through 16 when Abram was 86 years old. 14 years later, God gave Abraham and Sarah their promised son Isaac. When Isaac was weaned at about 3 years, a traditional feast was held. At this event, Ishmael mocked Isaac. We'll see this in Genesis 21:9. So Sarah insisted that Abraham send Hagar and Ishmael away. God confirmed this in Genesis 21:12. So Hagar and Ishmael wandered into the wilderness of Beersheba, where their water was gone. God miraculously rescued them and assured Hagar that Ishmael would be father of a great nation. We'll see this in Genesis 21:17-19. Paul made an analogy in Galatians 4:22-31, in which Hagar represents Mount Sinai, where the Old Covenant was formed, while Sarah represents the heavenly Jerusalem, the community of those who will receive salvation by faith in Jesus Christ. As Isaac was Abraham's son by faith in divine promise, Christians who were free of the law are spiritual children of Sarah. So, to sum up everything that happened in chapter 16, after waiting a decade for God's promise, Sarai took, letting it not be fulfilled, Sarai took matters into her own hands and used the customs and basically what was appropriate at the time to allow Abram to marry her servant Hagar in order to have a son through her. And then after Hagar becomes pregnant, she wants to be the honored wife and begins to show Sarai contempt. And so Sarai goes to Abram and is like, dude, what is going on with this new wife of yours? She's treating me terribly. This is all your fault. Basically forgetting the fact that she had told Abram to marry Hagar and have a child with her in the first place so that they could both fulfill God's plan through human means. And so Abram is like, she's your servant. You asked me to do this. What do you want me to do? Treat her as you wish. And so Sarai treats her so poorly that even while pregnant, Hagar flees into the desert and leaves. And that's where she has a miraculous encounter with God, who she recognizes as Be'er Lahai Roy, the God who sees her. And I think that this is such a sweet moment between God and Hagar, and it should remind us how God loves everyone, not just the Jews, his chosen people, but Gentiles as well. God could have ignored Hagar. He could have let her run away. He could have let her die in the desert. But instead, he not only sees her distress and hears her complaints, but he promises blessing to her son, even though she was put in this and probably because she was put in this horrible position where she was given away as a wife and was in submission to these two people who just wanted a kid. And wanting a kid is never a bad thing, but because of this Mesopotamian custom, it just caused a lot of mess, and will continue to cause a lot of mess throughout the years. To be frank, I mean, Ishmael and Isaac's descendants are still fighting today, right now in the Middle East. And it just causes a lot of pain. But even in that, God gave Ishmael his own nation. Yes, it was a violent and wild nation, but even to someone who was basically thrown into the middle of God's plan, not by her own choice, and by humans trying to fix what God has already done, they just haven't seen it yet. There's still blessing, there's still grace, and there's still redemption, in that God will meet people where they're at and help them no matter what their circumstances. And I really appreciate how even in the midst of our darkest times, God will show up and be like, I see you, I love you, I know you. And he did it not only for Hagar and Ishmael, but he's done it, he'll do it for Abram and Sarai as well. Because tomorrow we'll talk about chapter 17, and it gave you a little bit of foreshadowing with talking about Isaac here. But yeah, we'll see how God fulfills his promises, even when his kids do, like, we're not stupid, but sometimes we do really stupid things. And Abram and Sarai had another stupid moment in chapter 16 by trying to force the heir to happen. But God will come through anyways, and it's going to be a great thing. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back with chapter 17 tomorrow. God bless.